So today we're going to be just previewing tomorrow's lesson, which is on converting from standard form into vertex form. This process is called completing the square. And at the end of this process, you'll end up with vertex form. So then we can easily see the A, H, and K value and can determine the properties of the parabola. So this is on page 16 in your lesson workbook. I'm going to do problem 1 and 2 with you, and then we will review this tomorrow in class and continue working with completing the square. I would like you to follow the steps on the side here, and that's just going to help with getting this as a habit and figuring out the process correctly, and then eventually you won't need these steps. So step number 1 is put brackets around the first two terms. And as you can see, already it starts to look a little bit more like vertex form. Vertex form has brackets in it like that. So just by putting those brackets there, you can see it's starting to look a little bit like that. And then you can see the next difference is that we need to pull the A value out. We need to know if it's opening up or down, stretched or compressed. So step number 2 here is factor out the common number, but not the common letter. So it's partial common factoring. So I'm just going to look at here. I am going to take out this A value of 2, and I'm going to divide it out of both of these terms. So divide out the A value. So when I divide 2 out of the first term, I end up with just x squared. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And when I divide 2 out of the second term, 12 divided by 2 is 6. So I've reduced that by a factor of 2. The next step here is going to look a little unusual. Look at the last term in the bracket. So that's this one here. I'm going to look at the 6x. Divide the number by 2 and square it. So for now, just trust the steps, trust the process, and you'll see what happens here. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. You might be wondering, like, well, that's nice, Mrs. Reed, why would we do that? So keep going here. Step number 4 is add and subtract that number behind the last term in the bracket. So y equals 2x squared plus 6x. I haven't changed anything here, but now I'm going to add and subtract this number, 9, in my brackets here. And you quickly see I haven't actually done anything. Plus 9 minus 9 is 0. So I'm manipulating this equation, but I haven't changed this parabolic equation. I'm just manipulating it here. Now, step number 5 says move the negative number outside of the bracket, but remember to multiply it by the A value, because this 2 is multiplying to everything inside of my bracket. I'm going to leave in the positive 9, but I'm moving out the negative 9. And negative 9 times 2 is negative 18. So here I'm going to end up with negative 18 outside of the bracket because 9 times 2 is 18. So that number, that negative 18, became as a result of taking this negative 9 and moving outside the bracket, but I multiplied it by my A value of 2. Step number 6 says simplify the numbers outside of the bracket. So negative 18 minus 3 is negative 21. And step number 7, it says factor the bracket using the shortcut method for a perfect square trinomial. Well, this is a new concept to us. So I'm going to tell you what this shortcut method is. You're going to take the square root of the first term, the sine of the middle, and the square root of the last term. So when you factor this bracket, you're going to end up with y equals 2. Square root of x squared is x. Sine of the middle is plus. Square root of 9 is 3. Close that bracket and square it. And now this is in vertex form. The vertex being at negative 3 and negative 21. So these steps are going to seem very new and very unfamiliar, but we're going to do them. I'll do them here one more time with you. And we're going to be doing this again tomorrow to try to make this into a solidified thought process in your mind. So again, remember, the brain wants to make habits. So the more you do this, the easier the skill gets, and your future self is going to be happier with you. So put brackets around the first two terms. And then I'm going to divide out the A value. So I'm dividing out negative 5. So I'm going to have the negative 5 out front. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1, so I'm left with x squared. Positive 20 divided by negative 5 is negative 4. All right, now look at the last term in the brackets. It's a negative 4. Divided by 2 is negative 2. And negative 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to add and subtract that number in my brackets after the negative 4x. So plus 4 minus 4. So that number was inserted in there. Plus 4 minus 4, remember it being 0, but we're just manipulating the equation. The next step is move the negative 4 out of the bracket, but multiply it by the a value. So I'm going to be moving out a positive 20. Signs matter. Be very, very careful with your signs here. Negative times negative is a positive. Okay. Simplify the numbers outside of the bracket. So 20 plus 2 is going to be 22. And now I have this kind of interesting last step here. So you're going to take the square root of the first term, sine of the middle, and square root of the last term. And as we move into chapter 5, this process will make quite a bit more sense here. So square root of x squared, sine of the middle, square root of the last term. So square root of x squared is x, sine of the middle is minus, square root of 4 is 2. Close that bracket and square it so that it looks like vertex form. And now I can see my vertex is at 2 and 22. And if I wanted to completely describe this parabola, I could. I know it's opening down. It's been stretched. I can describe the left, right, and up, down transformations here in vertex form. We will be doing this tomorrow as well, but I would suggest if this felt very new to you, watch the video again. Try to get this as much as in your memory as possible before we continue working with it tomorrow.